Hi, so I'm here today with Alfredo Tan, the Chief Digital and Innovation Officer for WestJet and formerly of Facebook Canada. Thanks so much for being here with me today, Alfredo.
Awesome, thanks for having me.
So you've done a ton of work in this space. We're going to be talking about the future of work. Can you explain to us kind of your insights on what we can expect to experience in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think one of the things that will continue to be a significant force from a technology and a consumer behavior perspective will be mobile. There hasn't been a consumer behavior shift that we've seen that has been as dramatic as mobile, and I think that's going to continue for the next 10 years. I think other areas of interest will be things like AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how that applies to certain industries. And all of that's going to be encompassed into big data, which is how do companies make better decisions using the data that they're collecting today.
And so part of that AI technology, we're all aware of this personally and professionally, how this is changing our lives. And some people are afraid of that. So what is your advice for people and companies as they approach this, especially in terms of timeliness to get on this?
Sure. Yeah. I don't think knowledge-based jobs will be replaced by AI. I think they'll enhance the capabilities. And what people shouldn't be doing is being afraid of the future. They should just be making bets on where they think the future will be and then try to find how their skill sets can apply to that, right? I think the danger is doing nothing because you're afraid of the failure piece, and that's usually what often kills companies, often kills careers, because you're choosing to do nothing different than what you're currently doing today. What I think is exciting about work is that we don't know where it's going to lead in terms of what technology changes will take place, but you sort of get a sense for what technologies will have an impact. I've described some of them today. How do you get experience in mobile? How will you be using AI for the industry that you work in and the company that you're working in to drive growth in the company? So I think it takes a special type of person who's inspired by uncertainty to take and use these technologies and help their companies grow. And
so what is your advice, again, because you said it's all uncertain, no one's really done it before, what is your advice to get people thinking out of the box and strategies either for their company professionally or even personally when approaching technology advances?
Yeah, I think one of them is you have to be a person that's interested in learning, and you work for a company where a learning culture is embedded into the organization. Number two, you have to be willing to take risks, because if you want to build great things into the future, risk and failure is a part of that equation. And most people have an apprehension to do those things because they're afraid of the failure piece. But I tell you, doing nothing is a guaranteed way to fail for sure. And I think the third part is just being bold. Like, how do you think about making some big bets in your career as well as making some big bets in the company you work for in order to help create and reimagine the future as opposed to just being a bystander?
So what should people, and let's talk about companies, what should they be doing right now? What are some things that they can start implementing today or be thinking about today?
One of them is some companies still don't have a mobile or robust e-commerce strategy. And it's sort of crazy to hear that, but that should be one of the starting points. Given that what we just talked about is this massive consumer shift to mobile, how can you not have a strategy to deal with the biggest consumer shift we've ever had? Number two, I think AI and machine learning is going to have a dramatic impact in so many industries, whether it's airline, banking, financial services, IT, and I think people should be not experimenting haphazardly, but thinking about ways to apply that technology, because it isn't a race and you finish in like 300 days or 100 days. It's simply a longer term investment in these technologies for the long run.
So thinking about the fear factor, what's at stake here for these companies if they hesitate to institute some of these changes?
So there's a study by Accenture that said 52% of the Fortune 500 are no longer in business today.
Wow.
And the reason that happens is it isn't usually the outside competition that creates the pressure. It's usually internal paralysis and conflicts within the organization that prevent you from doing great things. And I think what companies need to do is have a culture that allows innovation to take place, and a culture where you embrace the change that's going to happen and you adapt to it. So if I had to pick one thing, I think it would be a focus on a learning organization, and one that takes bold moves and accepts failure as part of the process.
So would that be your advice to leaders looking to shake up their workplace, or is there anything else you'd encourage them to do?
I think being an open and transparent culture where information's being disseminated across the entire company so people can make better decisions. I think throwing away things that don't really matter and focusing on impact, which means measure the outcome as opposed to how many hours a week did you work. So it's this shift from focusing on things that really didn't have a driving force in the business, but focus on the things that matter, right? So whether that means working from home or working in the office, does that really have an impact on the job? You measure the outcome as opposed to the things that we thought were the right inputs 30 or 40 years ago.
And what is your advice for people at different levels of their career and different ages? Is it to, you know, get that young talent into your company, or can you kind of draw this out from maybe some of your more senior employees?
Well, I think you do it across the board. I don't think this is an age or an experience thing. I think everyone, especially if you work in a company with a great culture, whether that's the intern that you've just hired for 4 months, all the way to the CEO, the concept I'm talking about should be embodied by the entire organization.